everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'd like to actually start by agreeing with Mr. Malia, which may not be often during this conversation, but it's actually a lament to what has happened with social media. But yes, it had the potential to democratize news space and amplify voices that were not getting heard. And it did that. It gave an outlet to anyone and everyone to come out and say what they like. And we didn't only have to hear the traditional experts that the mainstream media would quote. We heard young voices, we heard diverse voices, we heard voices from outside of the metros, outside of Delhi. However, on the flip side, its unregulated nature also meant that abuse, harassment, bigotry crept in and now has exploded. Rampant fake news, violent threats are another manifestation of the same. But whenever we talk of these problems, it's always in generalities, convenient answers like, oh, everyone's doing it, don't take it seriously, it's not the real world, it's hard to stop it, WhatsApp is the problem. We can't blame the medium. To identify the problem is the only way you can resolve it. And the malaise has now spread to all stakeholders, whether it's political parties or it's mainstream media or the new digital media. However, its origin lies in the right-wing ecosystem, which continues to be the dominant force on social media in India, on all formats, whether it's Twitter or Facebook. The BJP was the first party to identify and recognize and mobilize on social media, and that's to their credit. They saw it before anyone else did, and they organized themselves. However, it would not have been problematic if it did not cultivate a toxic environment, whether it's abusing journalists, anybody who's disagreeing with them, championing the cause by vilifying minorities, making casteist remarks, or branding anyone and everyone an anti-national. From 2014 to now, this tendency has increased exponentially. In my own reporting experience on fake news websites particularly, I found how most of these came up after the 2014 election. Most of them actually began as a way of trying to put across their worldview, which they felt was not represented by the mainstream media, whether it's TV or print, or even have a voice in the regional press. Again, that would not have been a problem if they didn't ultimately succumb to what is now the fake news ecosystem, whether it's somebody like Postcard News, which is both in English and in regional outlets, or Insist Post. Again, these are all examples that have been out there for all of you to see in case you don't know who these people that I'm talking about are. But without the implicit or sometimes explicit support from the BJP, they would never have been able to grow so big. So it ultimately falls back to the fact that the political party that is in power today has fostered this for political purposes. The atmosphere is so vicious now that it's not just liberals or media people, but even BJP's own ministers that tend to get trolled. I mean, I'm sure all of you know the example of Ms. Sushma Swaraj and what she had to face after the Lucknow passport case. I think that's a typical example of what happens when you create a monster that you cannot ultimately control. Now, of course, the other side is not blameless. It's not to say that it's only the BJP that is doing that, the Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, whatever. All political parties who've also fallen for fake news or shared them or created them, amplified them. And such instances will always get cited every time you raise a point about this happening more often with the BJP. But if you see with what is the evidence, at least till now, and that has largely been thanks to the spurt of fact-checking websites that have come up in response to the phenomena of fake news. There is no doubt that the problem largely lies in the right-wing ecosystem led by the BJP and its leaders, with different degrees of culpability. I mean, Mr. Malviya has himself, like for instance, I remember shared a cleverly edited video of journalist Ravish Kumar, who was making a speech, and the original speech said something else, but it was edited to make it seem partisan towards the political party, which it wasn't. So that's one strand of it, which is largely to do with the fake news aspect and how you can amplify something that is not true, or bordering on falsehood, or cherry picking things to make them seem like what they're not. The second strand is the abuse, threat of violence, and rape, particularly to women, and most often than not, journalists. Again, it's been documented widely on how so many of these abusive handles are followed by BJP ministers as well as the Prime Minister's own Twitter handle. Now, of course, that is not to say that the Prime Minister or any of these leaders are responsible for what someone is saying on Twitter. That's fine. They cannot predict that. But once that is known, any leader would not find it hard to unfollow them, right? I mean, for me, I don't understand why that hasn't happened. And it's been in multiple cases. It's not like it happened once. And this goes for all political leaders. I would say the same for anyone else also. Any follower who's abusive repeatedly, these are not like, again, one-time issues. So with this kind of a divisive agenda which influences political conversations, unfortunately, this is also seeped in so deeply in the mainstream media. Channels like Times Now have carried sensational, like prime-time news based on fake WhatsApp forwards. And the people who were supposed to be the gatekeepers, who were supposed to, keep a check on what is happening in the political circle, have themselves succumbed to it. So it becomes a huge issue. And I totally agree that the media has so much blame to take for this. So this brings us to the question of why we've not been able to stem this, whether it's the fake news problem or abuse. Ultimately, it's because there is no repercussion. There is no repercussion to the media houses that are carrying this. There is no repercussion to BJP activists or followers or cadre, whoever's indulging in that, or any other political party for that matter. A lot of these handles or trolls, if you want to call them, are anonymous, so they are unidentifiable. Someone can tweet and abuse to me every single day, and I would never know who they are, or they may be using a fake ID or whatever. Second is, of course, that they are not held accountable. So, as I pointed out, that if someone is abusing and is being followed by the people in power and do not get unfollowed even after being called out, that means they know that they're okay to do it. Same thing for news organizations. Z News carried the doctored video about JNU, since we're here. An ex-employee documented, wrote about how that had happened, and it's been proved that it was doctored, and yet, the report of inquiry. So obviously, this thing is not going to be able to stop, and there are real-life consequences to the people who are involved in the story. So the students of JNU who were maligned, etc., and continue to be. I'd like to end with the recent statement that the BJP president, Mr. Amit Shah, made to party workers in Rajasthan, which is sort of like, I feel like a precursor to what we can expect in the elections and not see this going away anywhere, is where he admits that the BJP can make anything go viral, and credit to Mr. Malviya and his team for that. He describes how a volunteer in UP created a fake WhatsApp message about Akhilesh slapping Mulayam Singh Yadav and how that went viral. At the end of that anecdote, he says, "This is something worth doing, but don't do it." The subtext is for all of us to understand that. And I think the best test for all that I've said now and what we may discuss later will depend on how much or how little I get attacked by Mr. Malviya's followers at the end of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your opening remarks. I would like to begin with asking you a question. Ma'am, on the 9th of August 2018, which reads, "To cherry pick instances from the past because your loyalties are to the present, brilliant lecture by Audrey Trushke on Aurangzeb." This was on the 9th of August. And since we are talking about fact-checking and social media, and you've got thousands of followers, what I wish to get to... That's all right. What I was getting to was that Aurangzeb, even centuries after his death, remains a very divisive figure in the Indian society. And authors like Audrey Pushke, whom I've followed, have tried to present Aurangzeb as a just and secular ruler. And I would like to fact check the fact checker here. And I would like to present a fact before you. In 1710, Mustad Khan wrote the Masr-e-Alam at the place of Inayatullah was the secretary of Aurangzeb, and he quotes the destruction of temples. He quotes the destruction of temples, and he says, according to the emperor's command, his officers had demolished the temple of Vishwanath at Kashi. He also mentions the destruction of Dera of Keshav Rai in Mathura, wherein he says, the destruction of the strong foundation of infidelity was accomplished, and on its site a lofty mosque was built at an expenditure of a large sum. And there are various such examples in Rajasthan, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh. Don't you think, ma'am, that respected journalists like you who followed on social media, don't you think that we should be careful in making such tweets, because it essentially reminds the Hindus of what their ancestors went through at the hands of a brutal Mughal emperor? And Amit sir can feel free to come in if he can.
So, first of all, my tweet was only quoting something that she had said, and I had attended a lecture, so that was the reason. It wasn't that I thought about what she may have written. I thought her lecture was very persuasive. She's a good speaker, and she has obviously done good research on that. That does not mean that I am saying that this history is correct or that history is correct, because you can quote me 10 facts like this, and if I want, I can also show you 10 counterfacts. So that's not the argument here. What you're trying to say is that my tweet was irresponsible because you may disagree with that fact that someone else stated, which I quoted. So it's not, first of all, coming from me. So you have to make that distinction. It's not a claim that I'm making. I am quoting someone's claim. And if you disagree with that, that's fine. But it's not irresponsible for me to quote someone else. I mean, I could quote maybe a BJP minister tomorrow, and someone can fact check that and say, oh, actually, that was incorrect. So that's really not on me.
Because you said that it was a brilliant lecture.
Yeah, so a lecture.
Endorsing what and the work.
A lecture or my personal preference for an author or his work is nothing to do with what the public should believe. I mean, you know, would you not praise a writer or an artist that you like?
So would you have a counter?
Yeah, well, I do have a counter to that. You know, what Neha is really trying to do right now is what most liberals do. They try and obfuscate issues. Oh, I just said this. Oh, I love the author, but you know, I don't endorse the view. Fair enough. How often do you go to listen to somebody who's obnoxious? You think his views are obnoxious, but go spend 2 hours there and come back saying brilliant. Nothing personal against you. I'm just making an argument. Right?
I also did attend several other talks,
Yes,
including the book launch of
Yeah.
the Walter Anderson.
All right. I'll just finish. Thank you.
I'm just saying that
No, I know.
my social calendar is slightly wider than you think.
Sure. Thank you. So, she just quoted something, and you're not free to see it as endorsement. And if you saw it as endorsement, your problem, not hers. Aurangzeb is being justified by this historian, journalist, I don't know who she is. She thinks that Aurangzeb was the greatest thing that happened to this country, right? He had a civilizational impact on our country. He came and told us how great biryani was as a dish. And how come we don't like him? He just killed a few million Hindus. God damn it, it was 30 or 300 years ago. Come on. You know, that's the kind of whitewashing that has happened to history in this country. Similar whitewashing has been done with Tipu Sultan. You know, we have been told that he was a freedom fighter. I remember I read that in school, freedom fighter the Tipu Sultan ji. I happened to live in Bangalore for 6 years. By the way, before I moved to Delhi 3 years ago, I was in Bangalore for a long time. And I'll give you a small example. There used to be a play that used to come called The Sword of Tipu Sultan. You remember? On television there used to be programs. And in that they made Tipu Sultan look like this glorious warrior who was fighting to defend whatnot, and if he was not there, the southern India would have gone and whatever else. There was a gentleman called Girish Karnad. He had, I think, written that play or directed it or something like that. And he had done several such theatre plays in Karnataka, in Kannada. So there is a professor called Professor S.L. Bhairappa. He challenged Girish Karnad on the veracity of the facts in that play. And he asked Girish Karnad to come for a debate. We all know Girish Karnad, right? He was recently holding a placard saying, I'm also a Naxal or something like that. I'm me too, urban Naxal, with a cylinder and all, oxygen cylinder put on and things like that. And when Girish Karnad was called out by S.L. Bhairappa, he just disappeared. He said, नहीं मैंने कब कहा कि ये टीपू सुल्तान का एक्चुअल रेन था, ये तो मेरा इंटरप्रिटेशन है टीपू सुल्तान का. Then there have been books that have been written on Tipu Sultan. There's a book written by an amateur historian. It's a very thin book, about 150 pages. It's called Tipu Sultan, the Tyrant of Mysore, written by Sandeep Balakrishna. All that he's done, he's chronicled and put writings on Tipu Sultan, which were written in Kannada, on how tyrannical his reign was, what the French travelers, the Portuguese traveler have said about him. He excluded the British, because remember, he was positioned to us as this freedom fighter who was fighting the British. So he said, okay, let me take the Britishers out. Maybe their view was biased against him. And if you read it, you will be shocked at how much a barbarian he was, exactly the way Aurangzeb was. And that is the kind of whitewashing of history the so-called left liberals and nice journalists like my fellow panelist here do. I'm not pointing her out, but I'm just saying that there are several of them like this. She spoke about violence. She spoke about abuse to women. She spoke about how women journalists are targeted on social media. But she did not for once mention that journalism is fraught with sexual predators. Just yesterday, there was a meltdown on Twitter where several women journalists have called out men in their ranks who have harassed them, who have molested them over years. Many of them senior journalists, and several women are still in the profession, and they are keeping up with those men. She did not speak about them.
Because that's not the topic of discussion.
Because you chose to ignore it, because it was inconvenient for you to mention that the biggest predators are right in your rank. Those who have been holding forth on public morality are today in journalism. Every senior editor is culpable of molestation case. I know of it, she knows of it as well, but nobody talks about it. It's pushed under the sheet. Why is my question? Why do those people who pontificate at 9 p.m. on Indian television don't ever tell the truth about the industry that they come from? Why don't they ever tell you that they have for the last 70 years whitewashed the facts of this country? Why do they tell you that the death of a Muslim or a Hindu is as painful, and not just if you come from a minority community? Social media has changed all of that. It's your and my voice that has changed all of that.
I'm sorry, but I take offense at the sexual harassment charge, because I myself have been at the receiving end of something which I have spoken about, and 36 other women along with me who spoke about this more than a year ago have a defamation suit against us. So please do not say without knowing what it is like to be on the other side. And that was not the topic of today's discussion. I'm happy to talk about that for the next 2 hours if you like.
So here's the thing, I have a question for you as well. That's all right. So you spoke about fake news and what the other parties are doing, but we've seen that members of the BJP and even ministers and members of parliament falling prey to fake news. So Babul Supriyo did that. We've seen also Shashi Tharoor, unimaginable, he also did that. So from your account as well in November 2017, some would say that there was some distasteful tweet about Prime Minister Nehru that was made. So you worked in the corporate industry for long, as you just mentioned. And there's one thing that all of us here sitting here would acknowledge is that the corporate field pays very much of attention to detail. And so don't you think that as a responsible politician, as someone that a lot of budding politicians sitting here would look up to, don't you think that perhaps members of the BJP could be more careful while putting out such tweets about India's first Prime Minister?
Well, first of all, I must admit that I was guilty of posting a picture in which 3 of the pictures could have been avoided because they did not mean to suggest the point that I was making. However, that does not change my view of Nehru or the fact that he was a philanderer, and I think secular philanderers cannot have different yardsticks for measurement. Nehru's ways are well documented by his private secretary of 13 years, M.O. Mathai. He has written a book called My Reminiscences of the Nehru Days. There are several documentaries done by BBC and several other agencies in which it has been very well documented what Nehru did and how it impacted the course of national events. I am not concerned about what he does in his public life if it had not impacted our national discourse, but it did. So while I could have, on hindsight, avoided that tweet or at least got the 3 pics removed, but it does not take away from the fact that we must have a debate on morality and public life. And Nehru, even though he was our first Prime Minister, is not above it. We cannot defy him and not have him analyzed and his actions taken to criticism if they warranted one. That's point number 1. So that's about me. Point number 2, the fake news is indeed an issue. And I think sometimes it happens because people willingly push something which they know is incorrect and they want others to believe it. The other times it happens by way of oversight. And I don't know of anybody, and it's nothing to do with the BJP or the Congress or Ram Aadmi Party or even journalists, who has not been guilty of peddling fake news. Small example, when the demonetization happened, there was this big news that went around saying that there's going to be a chip in the 2,000 rupee note, and if you bury it under the ground, you will still find out where the money is. It was fake news. Every journalist worth his salt plugged it. I just heard my fellow panelists say that social media is unregulated. मीडिया में तो रेगुलेशन है, मीडिया में तो एडिटर्स होते हैं, फिर क्यों गड़बड़ होता है बार बार? I'll give you an example. In Gujarat, in the middle of election, and strangely these things happen close to elections. Like for example, award wapasi happened just before Bihar election. And then suddenly when Bihar election happens, everybody goes home with their awards back. Reality of life. And I'm not kidding, you should see this. So Gujarat election happened. Now, minority population in Gujarat is 9%. So that is not a convenient narrative, right? So kya narrative convenient hai? Let's create a fight between Dalits and the other Hindu community members. So there is a story that gets planted in Indian Express. अच्छा अखबार है. जब रामनाथ गोयनका जी इसको edit करते थे, तो it was supposed to be a newspaper that would set the moral compass of this country. I don't think we can say that about it now anymore. उसमें खबर छपती है कि एक दलित लड़के को की मूंछ काट दी गई क्योंकि वो घोड़े पे बैठा था। आपने देखा, किसी ने देखा? उस पर बहुत न्यूज चली कि देखो दलित कितने इनसिक्योर है, गुजरात में दलित ये हो गया, दलितों को प्रताड़ित किया जा रहा है, ऐसा वैसा सब कुछ। 3-4 दिन के बाद पता चला कि इट वॉज अ पर्सनल फाइट बिटवीन हिम एंड सम अदर पीपल देयर। इसका कोई क्लैरिफिकेशन नहीं, कोई न्यूज नहीं, कोई ये भी नहीं कहा कि हमने गलती से आउटरीच कर दिया, ये सही खबर है भाई, कोई नहीं। रिट्रैक्शन छपता है 11वें पेज पे इतने छोटे फॉन्ट में कि आदमी ढूंढता रहे तो भी ना मिले। आउटरीच छपता है पहले पन्ने पे बोल्ड हेडलाइंस के साथ। ये रियलिटी है हमारे मीडिया। इस एबरेशन को करेक्ट करता है सोशल मीडिया। इसीलिए जर्नलिस्ट को सोशल मीडिया पसंद नहीं है। हमारे एक ऐसा देश है जहां पे जर्नलिस्ट कहते हैं कि फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच पर रिस्ट्रिक्शन होनी चाहिए। अमेरिका, which is supposed to be the heaven of free speech, where all the leftists go and teach in foreign universities and run propaganda against India from there, never advocate a First Amendment in India like the US has. US का First Amendment कहता है कि the state shall make no law that will infringe on freedom of speech. इंडिया का फर्स्ट अमेंडमेंट क्या था, आपको किसी को मालूम है? नेहरू जी ने किया था, जिसको मीडिया में लोग कहते हैं कि फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच के बड़े चैंपियन थे वो। याद है, कांग्रेस वाले बताते हैं कि एक शंकर ने कार्टून बनाया और नेहरू जी ने कहा, शंकर, यू शुड मेक मोर कार्टून्स ऑन मी। यू रिमेंबर दैट? वो कई बार कांग्रेस वाले कहते हैं ना कि नेहरू जी कितने लिबरल थे। मैं आपको बताता हूँ, इंडिया में फर्स्ट अमेंडमेंट नेहरू जी ने किया और उन्होंने फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच पे रीजनेबल रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगा दी। और ऐसे प्रधानमंत्री को हमारे देश में 70 साल तक एपिटोम ऑफ फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच की तरह प्रोजेक्ट किया गया। इस देश के बड़े बड़े पत्रकार कहते हैं कि लोगों की अभिव्यक्ति की आजादी पर प्रतिबंध होना चाहिए। मगर आप अगर कुछ कहते हैं जो किसी बड़े पत्रकार को पसंद नहीं है तो आपकी अभिव्यक्ति की आजादी को बंद कर देना चाहिए और सोशल मीडिया पे रेगुलेशन होना चाहिए। लेकिन मीडिया को अपने ऊपर कोई रेगुलेशन नहीं चाहिए। मीडिया कहता है हम सेल्फ सेंसरशिप करेंगे। सुना है आपने? देयर इज नो बॉडी टू रेगुलेट इंडियन मीडिया। एडिटर्स गिल्ड है, इनइफेक्टिव है। एक और एडिटर्स की बॉडी है, वो तभी रिस्पॉन्ड करती है जब कोई लेफ्टिस्ट एजेंडा पुश करना होता है। पत्रकार जो हिंदी भाषा में लिखते हैं और रीजनल भाषा में लिखते हैं, अगर उनका कत्लेआम हो जाता है तो दिल्ली में कभी भी एडिटर्स गिल्ड या प्रेस क्लब ऑफ इंडिया बाहर निकल के आंदोलन नहीं करता है। लेकिन जो एक क्लिक है जर्नलिज्म में, जो अंग्रेजी में लिखता है, अंग्रेजी में बोलता है, वाइन पीता है, विदेशी अखबारों के पत्रकारों से डील करता है, अगर उनके किसी पत्रकार को कुछ हो जाए, देखिए भाई साहब, सारा दिन चलेगा न्यूज में, सारा दिन न्यूज में चलेगा। गौरी लंकेश, नाम सुना होगा आपने? शी वॉज किल्ड इन बैंगलोर आउटसाइड हर ओन रेजिडेंस। 8:20 को खबर आई, 9 बजे सभी प्राइम टाइम चैनल्स ने ये डिक्लेयर कर दिया कि राइट विंग एक्टिविस्ट हैव किल्ड हर। याद है आपको? 8:20 पे उसका मर्डर होता है। 9 बजे सारे देश के बड़े पत्रकार, दे जस्ट इमर्ज फ्रॉम द वुडवर्क्स और डिक्लेयर कर दिया कि उनको राइट विंग एक्टिविस्ट ने मारा। भैया आपको कैसे पता चला? और पता था तो आपने बताया क्यों नहीं? देश भर में कहीं भी कुछ हो जाता है। वेस्ट बंगाल में एक नन का रेप हो जाता है, उसके लिए मोदी जी जिम्मेदार हैं। गौरी लंकेश को बैंगलोर में मार दिया गया, लेकिन सिद्धरामैया जी जिम्मेदार नहीं है। क्यों? क्योंकि चुनाव आने वाला है, कांग्रेस के मुख्यमंत्री है। किसी भी पत्रकार ने सिद्धरामैया का रेजिग्नेशन नहीं मांगा। आपको अगर कहीं ऐसा लगा हो कि किसी पत्रकार ने सिद्धरामैया का रेजिग्नेशन मांगा हो, मुझे प्लीज भेजना। आई वॉन्ट टू बी करेक्टेड। चुनाव हो गया, गौरी लंकेश को किसने मारा कुछ पता नहीं, उससे पहले भी एक मर्डर हुआ, उसको भी राइट विंग एक्टिविस्ट ने मारा, लेकिन वहां की सरकार जो कांग्रेस के अधीन है इतनी कमजोर है कि ढूंढ ही नहीं पा रही किसने मारा है। और कोई पत्रकार इस बात में सच क्या है वो देश को बताने के लिए तैयार नहीं है। ये जो चीजें बदली है ना, ये सोशल मीडिया ने बदल दिया है। और इसीलिए आज सोशल मीडिया पे अपनी बात कहने वालों को मीडिया और ऑपोजिशन के दल जो इसी यूनिवर्सिटी के टुकड़े टुकड़े गैंग को सपोर्ट करते हैं, वो चाहते हैं कि सोशल मीडिया पे पाबंदी लगा दी जाए। ये इशू ट्रोल्स और फैक्ट चेकर्स का नहीं है, ये इशू उस नैरेटिव को डेंट कर देने का है जो आपके लिए पॉलिटिकली कन्वीनियंट था। आई रिग्रेट एंड आई होप दैट इन दिस अटेम्प्ट टू फर्दर अ नैरेटिव, फेक न्यूज इज नॉट finding its way, and it is certainly not finding its way through responsible public figures. मैं बहुत सालों से ट्वीट कर रहा हूं, 2-3 बार शायद कोई गलत ट्वीट गई होगी, I am responsible for it, but that does not take away from the larger malaise that faces the mainstream media of this country. We, the people of this country, have to fight not just political ideology, but also those who in the name of journalism are indulging in political journalism.
Thank you, sir. Neha ma'am, any response to what sir
Just a
said?
quick counter to one of the things that Mr. Malviya said about regulation. Let's not forget that it is your government's IMD ministry that wanted to regulate digital media. I don't see how that is on us.
One more question and then we'll open the round to the audience. As a journalist, and as someone who's active in New Delhi, there's a lot of talk about Lutyens media. So, what do you think of that talk, and what is the suggestion to journalist students who are here as to how do we control this, and what would you like to tell Amit sir as to how the BJP or the ruling dispensation must act in order to make India a better place?
Oh gosh, no, I definitely don't want to give any advice to political parties. I just think that the term Lutyens media is a convenient way, just like the term anti-national is now used for anyone and everyone who disagrees with you based on their ideology. I'm happy and to accept all the problems that are in whatever you want to describe Lutyens media as. I'm not saying mainstream media has been perfect. We've had a lot of issues, sure. We've tried to course correct sometimes. We may not have course corrected many other times. We may have been called out rightly and sometimes wrongly. But the tendency to label anyone who disagrees with the government, who disagrees with a particular ideology on social media or otherwise, to label them as Lutyens media, if you're part of the fraternity, if you're not, then you're just called anti-national. If you're a JNU student, you become Tukde gang. So that tendency to label the other is hugely problematic, and it is creating the divisions that we see today. Instead of being able to work across differences, instead of being able to talk across political ideologies, we are only deepening the divide. And I see that as a huge problem, which unfortunately social media, which could have bridged that, because I have a direct access to thousands of people who I do not know, would never meet, and yet can talk across from. But now I cannot engage with them anymore because I'm only attacked or abused or spoken of in a side. I came here was to be able to speak across political spectrum. And I think that's important, which we are losing, and unfortunately part of the problem again lies with how BJP and its supporters behave.
So are you suggesting that there's some kind of an undeclared emergency in this country, as a lot of your colleagues from the media have suggested?
Well, I mean, you can use any term for it. I don't particularly like that term, but I think there is a problem because of the pressures that are, it's a slightly separate issue from what we're discussing here, but pressures on the media are of various natures. And again, they are not the only first time that it's happening. It's happened in the past. It's a little different this time, and each era has its own set of challenges. So yes, there are a huge, like a variety of pressures on different forms of media, whether it's to do with pressure to pull down stories, whether it's pressure of funders who are backing them, and so on. And that has definitely again hobbled the way that media can function, and I really hope we get out of that. But again, there have also been spaces which have flourished because of this pressure on mainstream media. So we also see a lot of digital media that is crowdfunded, that comes up on its own, that is very, very, like run on like bare minimum, and yet manages to do some terrific work. So yeah, I mean, I think there is a problem, but unless we engage with each other, I don't see how it's going to get better. But if the engagement is always going to be aggressive and attacking, then that's not